Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast. Powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. With Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson, bringing you all the chatter that matters.
Well, we'll try and keep this a Trump-free zone this week.
I think we've blown it already. In fact, no matter what we say about him, it's going to be out of date by the time we come out.
Exactly, yeah. You just wake up every day and there's something new. We'll keep away from all that shenanigans and everything that's going on in that global geopolitical climate this week. But I think we've busy week in the headlines as always. There's been a few things going on. I know there's been a BVLA dinner. There's been other industry events this week. So, but we've got quite a few headlines to try and get through this week, but we wanted to give a bit of a start of a shout out to our supplier specials, don't we, Curtis?
We do, yes. We've had a lot of interest in the supplier specials, and so far we've spoken to Generational, Tracker, MTC, Jig Car, Checkwick, Car Care and Auto Chat. So it's really sort of gathering momentum because it's something we started last year on a sort of occasional basis, which turned into a monthly basis. So if you are interested in coming onto the podcast to do a supplier special, then just get in touch with myself or Phil and we can talk you through what's required.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just on some of those names there, we know, there's lots in the headlines around what Generational are doing. We're hearing a bit more now from Tracker and some of the data. Jig Car, we're actually going to be talking about Jig Car later on this morning as well. And, you sort of Auto Chat and all the others are always, out and about. So, these are industry suppliers that you are hearing a lot more about as we get through some of these headlines.
You're listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors.
Headlines this week come from AM Car Dealer, the Fleet News, Financial Times, and we've got two debuts this week, Phil, from Auto Sunday, Tristan Young's new outlet, and Business Vans. So we'll start with the SMMT registration figures for February, which are showing a rise in retail and BEV sales as the overall market drops by 1%. We'll also have the new van market, which actually tumbled by 19% in February, which is the third monthly drop in a row. Tesla models dominate the biggest used car price drops in February, reports Motors Market View. Car finance complaints rise to record level, reports the Financial Ombudsman. And we'll be looking at Chinese brand Leapmotor, which launched in the UK only this month, but is already saying that it plans to double its UK representation by the end of the year. Brayley's owner, Rostamani, in the frame to acquire Johnson Cars, reports Auto Sunday. And we'll finish with Cox Automotive and DHL to open UK EV battery repair centre.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on the Motor Trade Radio podcast. If you're a supplier and would like us to profile your business and reach our audience of dealer bosses, managers and decision makers on one of our dedicated supplier specials episodes, get in touch with Curtis and Philip at motortraderadio@yahoo.com.
So as Curtis has said there, we'll kick off this week with looking at the new car registration results for February, and then we'll talk about the vans. But to kick off with, so retail demand and EVs boost February new car performance. And this is saying that retail demand for new cars increased by 4.6% in the month of February to outperform the overall market that dipped by 1%, saying that private demand in the UK is up slightly year to date by 1.5% to just over 80,000 registrations. But it is a fairly low volume month, though, isn't it, Curtis, in general?
It is, yeah, and I think what we're seeing is a slight distortion in February. So, as you say, retail registrations and EV registrations are up, and there is quite an overlap between those two. And I think this is being driven by the introduction of the expensive car supplement in April. So, this I think what we're seeing here is retail buyers seeing that they're going to be paying extra tax on EVs that cost over £40,000 from April. So they're getting in early, hence this uptick in February. Do you think that's what's
There will
driven
be,
this?
yeah, there will be some of that, yeah, and there is still a push in this month, and obviously, I mean, we talk about BYD a lot on this podcast, and they're obviously now starting off the year very quick. Sort of alongside JQ and Amoda and some of the other new entrants, OEMs that are coming in, and some of that is EV products. So you're starting to see the start of the year around those products as well. But yeah, you're right. I think this, the new taxation ruling will be triggering some of that activity as well in the market. But again, for context, it is generally a low volume month. Is the month of February for obvious reasons.
Yeah, definitely. And overall sales for the month were reached 84,000 units, and as we said, that's down 1% year on year. And looking at the breakdown according to the various sectors, so private was up 4.6%. Fleet was down 4%, and business, which are those small fleet deals, that was up 3.3% for the month.
Yeah, and if you look at the fuel type breakdown, if you look at February in isolation, there, as I say there, that BEV registrations were up to 21,244 from 14,991 for the same month of last year. Plug-in hybrids slightly ahead of last year, up by 19.3%, up to 7,273. And then you've got a marginal drop again, similar drop to each other, petrol and diesel. Petrol down 17.3% year on year, down to just short of 40,000 registrations, and diesel down 15%, down to just 4,200 registrations. And as we said there at the start, that takes the year-to-date registrations for BEVs up to just short of 51,000 from 36,000 for the same period of last year. So echoing what Curtis said there, that we are now starting to see a movement in that EV registrations. It's going to be, we know that we're in the month of March now, and March is going to be a definer for this now, because it's the big volume month. It's the first registration plate month of the year. So obviously everyone's going to be focused in when we get these results on the first or second week of April to see what March actually did as a performance.
Yeah, and interesting what you were saying about BEVs. So that they're up 41.6% year to date, which actually gives them a 22.8% market share. So that's significantly up year on year, but that's still tracking well below the 28% needed for the ZEV mandates. So we'll keep a very close eye on that for next month's figures, which, as you say, will include the plate change. But you've got some European sales figures as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I mean, in Europe, I mean, that Italy down marginally 6.3%, down to 137,900. You've got France marginally down by 0.7%, so 141,000 there in France. Germany down 6.4% to 203,000, and Spain actually double-digit growth again there in Spain, just over 90,000 registrations there. So quite a bit of movements there across the European markets.
And heading over to business vans, which, as I said, it's the first time on the pod. So, welcome to business vans. The headline there is van sales drop, but electric vehicles rise in quiet month. So kind of echoing some of the stats we're seeing in the new car market, but the drop here is a lot bigger because it's down 19.3% year on year for the month of February. And this is actually the lowest total for the month since 2020. And I think this must mark about the third monthly drop in a row for the van market.
Yeah, they're under a little bit of pressure at the minute, and obviously the EV element within that LCV sector isn't helping there. Although they have seen a slight growth, I say a slight growth in actual numbers, it shows as a quite high percentage because BEV registrations in the LCV market up to 1,413, but that actually is a 55.1% year on year increase from just 911 last year. That takes the year to date to 2,877, and that's a 30% growth on the year to date period for the same in 2024. So the van market is moving slightly, but as you say there, overall the van sector is down 18.7% year to date. So there's still some challenges within the LCV market, and again, March is going to be a crucial time, and we know what's coming up in the budget, which puts pressure on that SME marketplace with national insurance and taxation changes that we've got coming up in April.
And rounding off our look at the February markets, we'll turn to the trends across the used sector. And there's a story in Car Dealer with the headline, "Used EV prices fall in February as second-hand Teslas dominate biggest fallers." So this is the latest market view research from Motors, which I did work with the team on, so I did see the data. And they've actually pinpointed some interesting trends around Teslas as well as the wider market. So it found that the price of used EVs fell in February, with Teslas in particular seeing their value fall quite dramatically. So the research found that the second-hand electric car market, the average cost of an electric car on Motors was £24,802. So that was down 2% month on month and 10% year on year. And within the data, they looked at the 5 biggest droppers in terms of prices over the course of the month. And it was actually led by the Mini hatchback, 3 to 4 years old, which was down 5.6% to just over £14,000. But within the top 5, we find there's the Tesla Model 2. The Tesla Model 3. I'm making.
I was going to say that's a new model.
Tesla ones, yeah. Don't tell Elon Musk about that. He's got a new entry model. So we've got Mini hatch at number 1. Number 2, we've got the Tesla Model 3, the Tesla Model Y at number 3, and the Vauxhall Grandland at number 4. And it's rounded off by older models of the Tesla Model 3, 4 to 5 year old models, which were down 4.2%.
Yeah, so I mean, it's again, we're in this funny period, aren't we, at the minute around these EVs, and you have to be careful of the headline figure that it's not all EVs. There are specific models, makes and models that are under pressure, as most have cited there, with the Tesla being one of those models. But obviously, they do say that overall consumer demand was brisk, with days to sell improving from 36 in January to 34.5 in February, with franchise dealers achieving the fastest days at just 24 days, and saying that the February saw dealers trading through the inventories they had built in January, with buyers benefiting from some of those competitive prices as witnessed by faster sales. And that's a comment there from Lucy Tugby from Motors.
Yeah, and there was also some data around stock volumes in February, which were down 8% month on month to an average of 49 units, but pretty much in line with where they were 12 months ago at 50 units. And within the piece, it says the drop is on the back of dealers moving to restock in time for January, with car supermarkets down 12% from just over 200 units to 177, and franchise dealers down 14% from 60 to 52 units, while independents remained unchanged at 37 units. So very much showing how dealers were trading through increased stocks that had been increased over the course of January and selling into February.
We'll be back after this break with the rest of this week's headline news.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on Motor Trade Radio. Powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all the biggest car retailing headlines from across the media, available on demand, wherever you are on your podcast feed.
So next headline comes from the Financial Times, and guess what, Phil? We're talking about the car finance complaints again. It's
Yes.
The headline says it all really, because it's car finance complaints rise to record level at UK ombudsman. So this piece that the FT ran at the beginning of the week, and it was picked up across the media after that. So it reflects that consumers have lodged a record number of complaints about car finance loans with the UK Financial Ombudsman, and really raising the pressure on regulators ahead of the crucial Supreme Court case, which will be heard next month. Now, the Ombudsman Service said earlier in the week that it had received 18,658 new cases about car loans in the 3 months to December. And it says that actually overtakes credit cards as the product subject to the most unresolved complaints across the UK financial sector. So this is really showing the scale of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and they go on to saying about obviously the rapid growth highlights how car loans are swiftly becoming the biggest UK consumer finance scandal since banks paid a 50 billion of redress over payment protection insurance, and saying that the controversy has added to the sense of turmoil of the FOS after the chief executive unexpectedly quit last month, days before the chair of the historically low-key body called for a radical shape-up of the rules and announced plans to leave. So, we know that the Supreme Court date is coming up on the 1st of April, and obviously we covered recently that the NFDA are involved with that from a retail dealer perspective here in the UK. But obviously, it seems that all this is starting to heat up a little bit just ahead of those dates.
Yeah, and it goes on to mention that the Supreme Court hearing, which is scheduled for next month, and which is really an appeal by car loan providers challenging a ruling last year from the Court of Appeal, which shocked banks by siding with consumers in their complaints about secret commissions or undisclosed commissions on car loans. So still plenty more to play out on this story.
Yeah, we'll be. I'm sure that as we get closer and closer to the 1st of April, we'll start to hear a lot more around this. And it is interesting because I'm hearing rumours across the sector that we are starting to see an increase in voluntary termination this year as well from finance loans within the sector. So we're not quite sure what that is yet, whether it's a permanent trend, whether it's a case of consumers being aware more now of voluntary termination as a right to return that vehicle within a certain period of time within their loan, or whether it's to do with the cost of living or just a combination of everything that's going on in cost of living and general economic climate. But we'll keep a close eye on that one.
And next headline is with AM Online, and it is Leapmotor to double UK dealer network to 80 locations. This is a great story because Leapmotor actually only went on sale at the beginning of this month, beginning of March, in time for the 25 plate. And as we know, this is the joint venture between Leapmotor and Stellantis. So that the brand, it's a joint venture between the Chinese manufacturer and Stellantis, as I say, which launched with 44 sites. But this story says that by the end of the year, it looks as though it will almost double it to 80 sites. But I guess the advantage that it has, Leapmotor, is that it's going into an established network. And bearing in mind the number of different brands that the Stellantis group operates, it makes the rollout and this ambitious growth a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, as you say there, I mean, they don't need to look for replacement brands, but as some of the other manufacturers and new entrants are doing with the dealer network, as you say, they can bolt this on to existing, whether that's Citroen dealers, Fiat dealers, DS dealers, and others within that Stellantis portfolio of franchises, and I'm sure some of the dealers will be welcoming alternative franchises or having an additional bolt-on to those franchises as they face certain market share challenges in the sector. So, as you say, I mean, it's a simple rollout. They have relationships with these dealers already. The systems and processes in place within those dealer groups, and as it's pointed out there, that there are dealers jumping on board fairly quickly, such as Arnold Clark, Greenhouse, Snows, and Robbins and Day. And we know Robbins and Day was a Stellantis-owned retail dealer group, so quite an easy transition into this and getting those vehicles into the market. But clearly, they're also entering at a good entry point in terms of cost of entry as well into the sector.
Yeah, and it does also highlight the sort of relative small scale and small demands in terms of showroom space. So the Leapmotor dealership requires space of just 95 square meters within an existing facility. So no standalone showroom is needed. So that's really going to help. And also, interestingly, around 70% of current franchises are with Vauxhall sites. So that's really showing the initial strength and rollout of the Leapmotor brand. So if you are visiting a Vauxhall site, then chances are there will be Leapmotors within the showroom there.
It is going to be. I mean, obviously we mentioned right at the start in terms of the February performance figures, and do you know what, Curtis? I should have said at the time, 99.9% forecast accuracy on that one.
You know what? I didn't think to ask you.
99.9. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. But yeah, I think as I say, there, it's going to be interesting to see the March and the first quarter trading registration figures, won't it, this year? When we've now got, BYD. We saw BYD last year with just under 8,000, or just under 9,000, registrations last year, but they have a target of 60,000 this year. So a big jump for BYD. We've got Omoda and JQ. We had Victor Zhang on the podcast last year, and be interested to see where they are in this first quarter trading. And now, what Leapmotors, we're going to see where that registration volume looks like when we get that table of activity for March and the first quarter of the year. So it is going to be intriguing. But just finally on this story, I mean, as I said earlier about that price point, the brand has launched two models so far: the T03 electric car, which has an on-the-road price of just $15,995. So a good entry point for those people trying to get into an EV. And then an SUV, which is the C10D SUV, which is a range of up to 261 miles. And a starting point at 36,500 on the road. So again, not huge cost of entry for these new models coming into the market.
Yeah, that's very keen pricing, and that £36,500 that will be under the expensive car supplement. So, the marketing of that car is absolutely spot on.
And heading over to Auto Sunday now, and this is that AW Rostamani in the frame for Johnson's acquisition. Now, there's been a lot going on around this at the minute. There's lots of views, there's lots of opinions, lots of speculation. We know that Johnson's sold three businesses to Group One last week with the Lexus and the Toyota businesses. But obviously, the other bit is that the rumours are that Brayley's are looking to acquire this Johnson's business as well.
Yeah, and Auto Sunday had the scoop on this, and they say that when they contacted um, Brayley's recently appointed CEO, Jose Blanco, he did not deny the acquisition was happening, saying only at this point I can't share any information. So Blanco took over from Paul Brayley at the start of this year, with Brayley moving onto a non-exec role. But also, Auto Sunday also contacted Johnson Cars for a comment. So this, as you say, lots happening at the moment with Johnson Cars, with the various disposals that it's made, and this would actually be a really, really good fit with what was the old Brayley's business, should this go ahead.
Yeah, like I say, there's a lot of unknowns with this. There are a lot of industry rumours and conversations taking place. Whether Brayley's are, looking at that acquisition of Johnson's, where they're going to take the whole business, excluding obviously what's now gone to Group One. Is there anything there in the first place? So again, it just feels that ahead of the new taxation coming up in April, following the budget, the higher corporation tax and capital gains tax that are coming up, you feel that these deals that have been rumbling around in the background there is now starting to emerge ahead of that new taxation period. So you do expect something to happen fairly soon, if something is going to happen. But it's a great story there from Tristan and the Auto Sunday team there, that working all the weekend to get these exclusives out there into the market.
And final story for this week is with Fleet News, and the headline is "Deal to open UK's biggest EV battery maintenance and repair centre." So this is Cox Automotive and DHL Supply Chain have teamed up to deliver an EV battery repair and remanufacturing centre aimed at fleet operators and manufacturers. And this is a big facility, isn't it, Phil? Because it's 35,000 square foot facility.
It's a big location. Yeah, I mean, it is, as you say there. It's the a partnership between Cox Automotive and DHL Supply Chain. This will introduce the largest EV battery repair and remanufacturing centre, as you say there. It's a 35,000 square foot facility there in DHL's 146,000 square foot EV centre of excellence in Rugby. So it's a big deal, this, for the UK and EV in general. I think the fact that this is going to be the collaboration is obviously set to set the new standard for EV battery circularity. It's meant to, around that, enhancing the sustainability of that EV ecosystem. And I think just from a Cox Automotive perspective, the UK facility does complement the existing EV battery service which we've got operating over there in the US and the Netherlands. So it's a significant partnership, and obviously big one with DHL there, Curtis.
Yeah, and there's a quote in the story from Martin Forbes, president of Cox Automotive International, who says, "As the automotive industry attempts to balance government mandates, consumer concerns about the durability of EVs, and a lack of technical expertise, the market requires tangible solutions and infrastructure to address barriers to EV adoption." And he goes on to say, with this dedicated facility, this dedicated battery repair space, we can deliver vital battery services to customers under one roof, and that really is the key. It's just bringing it into this one facility, and it's an interesting one to watch, I think.
It is, yeah, and it's bringing them two businesses together, from a
Yeah.
Cox Automotive EV battery solutions perspective around that triage, the repair, the remanufacturing services there in the battery space. But more importantly, that whole logistics side of things, and as Paul Stone, who's the MD manufacturing logistics at DHL Supply Chain, said, that handling, transporting and storing EV batteries is a complex process, presenting some unique challenges. So I think that partnership really brings the best of both together to offer that end solution there. So I think we'll obviously pick this up more in the future as we hear more about it. But just finally, just to keep one for your records for this week coming, and we've got an exclusive interview coming up, Curtis, early next week, which we'll be sharing, which I think the first time we probably heard from Philippe in the UK.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this because we haven't done the interview yet. It will be early next week, so hopefully it'll be in your podcast feeds from Tuesday onwards. But it's with Philippe Munoz, who's Jato Dynamics. He's the global automotive analyst, and you and I follow him on LinkedIn, and his output is fascinating. I mean, all his posts are about global sales, European sales, Asian sales, and you really get a feel for the different international markets and what they're doing, how EV is progressing, and it's always accompanied with some really, really spot on analysis. So yeah, Philippe's coming on the show, and we've got loads of questions for him, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to catching up with Philippe. I think if anybody's seen, like, as you say there, if you don't follow him on LinkedIn, then I suggest you look him up and follow him on LinkedIn. I mean, some of his diagrams and analysis of that global OEM space are fascinating, and he looks at who owns what and the share of each of those manufacturers in that global automotive space. So it is going to be a fascinating chat, especially on the back of, we're talking about tariffs, we're talking about Tesla, talking about Chinese new entrants, and I think that is an interview that I'm really looking forward to coming up next week. So keep tuned on that on your podcast feed for next week.
But you know what? That's all for now. So many thanks for joining us on the Motor Trade Radio podcast. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Thank you for listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. We'll be sharing all the URLs from this week's headlines on Monday morning. To make sure you receive them, just subscribe to the free newsletter on our LinkedIn page. Just search Motor Trade Radio Podcast.